Hello everyone. Now this is a slightly sensitive topic that I've touched upon previously, briefly, but it's come up again through the World Cricketers Association, the WCA. Now, even though cricket's popularity and revenues are surging globally, a large number of professional cricket players who play in ICC sanctioned leagues and major ICC events are still struggling to receive the payments that they are owed. These are not your superstars, but these are your ordinary cricketers who rely on these leagues to pay them, just like I rely on my salary or you rely on your business income. Now, this ongoing issue highlights a huge gap in player protection, and this is according to Tom Moffat of the World Cricketers Association, and that's what he said. And do you know something? He's absolutely right. The WCA represent players across 15 of the top 18 cricketing nations. They look after their welfare. It's almost like collective bargaining. They talk on their behalf. And what the WCA says is they frequently deal with cases of late payment or non-payment altogether. And a recent survey of over 320 professional players, mostly international, revealed that nearly 29% have experienced either delays or missing payments for their participation in ICC or member or ICC sanctioned cricket events. It's shocking. This really should not happen. Now, I spoke briefly about the case of the Oman men's cricket team. They played in the 2024 T20 World Cup. Now, almost a year after the conclusion of that event, these players still hadn't received their prize money. A year later after the event. And they looked for assistance from the WCA. And when they raised concerns, their contracts were cancelled, terminated. And according to the WCA report, to this day they remain unpaid. Shameful. And what are the guardians of cricket doing about this? What's the ICC doing about this? It's out there in the open. It's there in public. It's being debated. Articles are being written. Unfortunately, Oman's situation isn't unique. The article says that players in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Uganda, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Nepal, PNG, even India have faced similar challenges with substantial amounts of prize money outstanding, hasn't been paid to them. And these ordinary cricketers who rely on this for their livelihood, they also have their commitment. For them, this is a job. They need to get paid. And look, on the one side, you've got players who haven't been paid, who are crying out for their rightful dues. And this stands in stark contrast to the public image of ICC events, which are supposed to ensure players receive a fair share of the revenues through prize money and commercial rights. And they need to be paid according to ICC regulations within 21 days of an event's conclusion. And despite very loud, widely circulated, positive announcements from the ICC about historic prize pools, player welfare, the reality often falls short when it comes to the non-superstar players. Who speaks for them? Fans like me, a cricket fan, an ordinary cricket fan, would expect reasonably that these sums which are announced, that they will reach the players who make the game possible, especially since player prize money constitutes a small amount of the ICC revenues. only about 3% of the pool or something like that. You would expect that 3% would be paid to them. 97% goes to the ICC and to the boards. But sometimes even that 3% doesn't reach the players. And while players in countries that have strong associations like England, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, even perhaps the West Indies, those players might secure their fair share and get paid on time. The problem is that the vast majority of players, ordinary players, completely lack such representation and support. Unfortunately, they're left to fend for themselves. And the issue of late or missing payments isn't just limited to ICC events. ICC sanctioned domestic leagues, T20 domestic leagues, frequently also face the same problems. Typically, players, their agents, the World Cricketers Association, they find themselves chasing boards, team owners, league organizers, who just keep deflecting blame, just keep delaying the issue. And I'm sure it often feels as if these leagues are effectively relying on the players eventually getting tired of chasing and then simply giving up. However, the World Cricketers Association appears to be committed to continue to represent and advocate for players through its offices. And that's a good thing. Now, cricket prides itself on being the world's second biggest sport. That's what is widely said amongst the cricketing circles. Yet, for most professional players, it offers a precarious and a very uncertain career path. Now, the ICC and the boards, they ban players from participating in unsanctioned events. So if that's the case, the ICC and the boards have a fundamental responsibility, I repeat, a fundamental responsibility to ensure timely payments in ICC sanctioned competitions. They have to ensure this. Now, the WCA, the World Cricketers Association's recent Global Game Structure Report has suggested that cricket can and it should learn from other sports with stronger player protection and more advanced systems. I agree. Absolutely, I agree. The current system calls for it. The current circumstances call for this. What they say is that currently cricket's regulatory framework is ambiguous. It strictly controls events and player participation, but it fails to enforce accountability for payment delays. And that's true. Otherwise, why would these delays happen? Cricket's professional ecosystem relies on contracts. It's a very contractual environment, very legalistic at the top. To ensure stability, every well-managed sport should strive for fair, enforceable agreements between players and their employers. Just like any employee has a contract with his employer that he can enforce, cricket should have a similar setup. The WCA's report advocates for modernizing cricket's global regulations and reforms. Why? To protect players. Is that a bad thing? That's a good thing. They need protection. To specifically address the issue of non-payment, the WCA has made a few proposals, such as there should be sporting as well as economic penalties for governing bodies overseeing leagues that have payment issues. Example, withholding ICC distributions from non-compliant boards. They should hold back the money from those boards who have leagues that don't pay players. I agree. There has to be some sanction. Secondly, what the WCA recommends is standardized dispute resolution clauses in player contracts, coupled with meaningful penalties for non-compliance. Again, I think that's fair, absolutely fair. And then they also recommend escrow accounts. Set up escrow accounts for ICC sanctioned leagues, guaranteeing that funds are securely held and paid to the players on time. Again, who can argue with this? It's absolutely fair. What they say is that these solutions will also be effective through collective negotiation. Fair enough. I think that's right. And of course, the WCA hopes that cricket's leaders, the officials, the boards, the ICC, will take meaningful steps to address these challenges. This can only be good for and strengthen the sport, and once again protect the players who are its livelihood. But the players are the livelihood, the lifeline of the cricketing boards. After all the boards and the administrators of the ICC are there because of the players, not the other way around. They seem to act and think that the players are there because of them. That's not the case. Guys, think. Also, there are some broader issues like discouraging players from advocating for themselves or how they choose their representatives. That's a separate topic that the World Cricketers Association has also briefly touched upon. However, look, history clearly demonstrates that players are best protected when they stand together through a collective bargaining body. United they stand, divided they can be exploited. And here, once again, I am talking about your day-to-day ordinary cricketers who rely on their paychecks like you and I do. You know, if cricket truly aspires to be a leading global sport, ensuring that players are paid on time isn't an option. It isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It's basic. And since these issues regarding player payments have come up, have any of the boards or the ICC come out with public statements on how they're going to deal with this issue? Perhaps they have. Perhaps they will. You know, the ICC has its AGM, its annual conference in Singapore later this month, around the 17th of July. Is this on the agenda? If not, it should be on the agenda. There's still time. Put it on the agenda. Have a discussion. Make it public. Do you know, I remember when I was the CFO of the ICC, there was a time when, due to a technicality, something very small, I suggested that the ICC officials at the ICC office in Dubai may have to wait 2 days to get their salaries, which were due on Friday. They'll get paid on Monday due to a technicality. Do you know that that mere suggestion, just that suggestion, caused such an uproar in the office, such an outrage, that how could you do such a thing? We've got our commitments, we've got our mortgage payments, we've got this, we've got that. How can you do such a thing? This is a disaster. And yet, these same administrators, the governors of our great game, seem to be lying back and completely ignoring the fact that the players who are playing in their own sanctioned events haven't been paid for months, and in the case of the Omani players, over a year. Money that is rightfully due to them. Guys, what can I say? Look inwards. Put yourself in those players' position. That's called empathy. Empathize with those players. Put this on the agenda for next week's ICC meetings and then come out with a strong public statement on how you're going to deal with this issue, how you're going to deal with those administrators who hold events, get ICC sanctioned, and then don't pay the people who've made that possible, the players. Are you going to name and shame those administrators? Are you going to warn them? Are you going to eventually ban them? You know, when you receive money in trust, when anyone receives money in trust and then doesn't make his payments, his obligations, you are betraying that trust. It's immoral, it's unethical, and possibly much more. So, my sincere plea to the powers to be, to the administrators, don't ignore this issue. Please don't sweep it under the carpet. Don't pretend that it's not there. Don't look the other way. Come out with a public statement. Put it on the agenda for next week's AGM and deal with this issue. Please do what's right. Don't do what's easy. Don't do what's popular. Do what's right. And that will be for the benefit of all of us and for our great game of cricket, which unites us all, right? Okay, till next time.